Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Rachel.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you. Do you want to tell everyone what's up?
Today we're going to be talking about climate change. And since it's Earth Month, April, I wanted to share a few ways on how we can protect our environment since me and you both really love talking about it.
Yes, I am so excited.
So, Rachel, today we're going to be talking about what is climate change and why does it matter? What is a carbon footprint and how much truly is my individual impact? And what can I do to help reverse climate change and help the environment?
Sounds great. Let's go.
Mhm.
So, what is climate change and why does it matter?
Okay, so 97% of scientists agree that it's happening and it's man made. So it's real, it's happening, and it's happening right now. And if it's left unchecked, climate change will increase the likelihood of pervasive and irreversible impacts. So, likely in 50 years, if we don't do anything about our environment, we won't really have a home to live on.
Wow.
So the planet's surface temperature has risen 1.18 degrees Celsius since the late 19th century, mostly in the past 40 years. So it's becoming pretty rapid that our temperature is rising. And 90% of this energy is stored in the ocean, leading to melting ice, extreme fish die-offs, ocean acidity, and 8 inches of sea level rise in the last century. And in the next few slides, I'll see why all these environment changes can be such a big deal. So the consequences of all these environmental changes are carbon dioxide is increasing. Since 2018, it's peaked to dangerous levels. As you guys know, the Arctic ice is melting and decreasing by 13.3%, and areas like London would be claimed by the sea. Global temperature, like I spoke before, it's increasing since 1880 and it will result in extreme weather. Like this past year, we suffered a winter storm, which is not normal in Texas. And the sea level is rising, which can cause destructive erosion in habitable environments for our little fishy friends and floods.
Yikes. And all of these things are exponential too, right? So, when it gets worse, it keeps getting even worse and piling on top of each other. So,
Mhm.
you have to try and avoid that.
Exactly. So as you may know, our world is suffering, but there's some cities are really going to be impacted by climate change. Fast-growing African cities face worse climate risk. The cities at greatest risk are the ones that grow exponentially without proper urban planning and little to no environmental infrastructure, my bad, such as Nigeria, Yemen, Sudan, and much more. So although this doesn't really impact us, it does. African countries are going to be suffering the most.
Right. And we had our growth phase like that when we weren't really aware of all this climate stuff. So we were able to just pollute and do everything without even thinking about it. But now they're suffering the consequences as they grow.
All right, so here's a big number for you, Rachel. There's 5 billion total tons of carbon emissions in the US in 2016, which is 15.12 tons per capita. That means me and you, Rachel, each of us, we both emit 15.12 tons. That's a lot of carbon dioxide for our lovely Earth.
That is a huge number on a personal level. And that reminds me, like, that's what is we call a carbon footprint, you know? So it's your impact, your footprint, as it were, on the world in terms of carbon. And an interesting thing about a carbon footprint is that while it's a really helpful tool sometimes to kind of gauge your own impact, it actually was invented as a marketing tool for fossil fuel companies. So they were getting a lot of heat and a lot of pushback about their pollution and how much carbon dioxide and fossil fuels they put out into the world. And so they started advertising and pushing people to be aware of their carbon footprint and take personal responsibility for the company's actions. So that's crazy. And there's a lot of things that we can't control about our carbon footprint. Like if you live in a city, things like sewage treatment and the lights being on at the library are all parts of your carbon footprint that somebody else decided for you and is part of the larger city infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So an interesting fact is, yes, there were 5 billion tons of total emissions in the US, right? But in India, which has 4 times our population, in the same year, they emitted only 2.5 billion tons, which is just 1.9 tons per capita. So in different countries where you have maybe a different quality of life, your carbon emissions is different. And some of that is on you, but some of it isn't. And it's just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. That's insane. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's also sea trash. Great Pacific Garbage Patch is twice the area of Texas. Do you know how big Texas is? It's
Big.
huge. And the sea trash is twice the size of that. 46% made up of abandoned plastic fishing nets. Only 0.3 hundredths are plastic straws. So even though we're using metal straws and we're trying to make an impact, it's not really working, and there's other things we have to do.
Yeah, and that kind of, I think, just goes to show the difference between individual responsibility and things, because what can we as an individual person do about fishing nets and things like that? Those are things that need large scale like government interventions, you know. But plastic straws, for all the attention they get and for all we talk about them, really don't make that much of a difference.
Mm-hmm. So now, tips and recommendations. Think you might be doing that you think are helpful, but not really.
Yeah, okay, let's go.
So please recycle paper, metal, and glass, and don't wish recycle plastic. Only 9% of it gets recycled. So all those plastic water bottles aren't really doing much.
Yeah, that's the worst. I do want to highlight on this. Paper, metal, and glass, sorry, are overwhelmingly recycled and really reused and repurposed into new goods. But plastic, like we talked about, is part of that marketing campaign by fossil fuel industries and big industry polluters that they want you to think that it's okay to use plastic because, oh, I recycled it. But really, it rarely actually becomes new consumer goods. So the best policy is just to avoid plastic when you can. And then wish cycling, which is a really fun term that you used, is the idea that people will think, oh, like I hope this is recyclable. I want this to be recyclable. So they'll recycle something that really isn't recyclable. And then it ends up messing up the whole batch of recycling and everything has to get thrown in the garbage. So if you're not sure it's recyclable, check or throw it away, which is so hard to hear, but it's better to throw it away.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this. I think you told me that the city of Denton, there's like a website and they have guidelines on what you can and cannot recycle. And they even give you a little search bar to see if the thing that you have is recyclable.
Yes, Denton County has a waste wizard. So if you just Google Denton County waste wizard, can I recycle this? It'll pop up with a link and you can find like, oh, can I recycle this Toyota container?
Mm-hmm.
Figure it out.
I like that.
Cool. What's next?
All right, let's talk about the clothes, okay? Fast fashion is terrible for the environment and for society. If you don't know what fast fashion are big manufacturers such as Zara, Urban Outfitters, Victoria's Secret that creates lots of clothes, but they base it off on slave labor and synthetic fibers and other things that are bad for the environment. Did you know that it takes 2,700 liters of water to make one cotton shirt? That's crazy.
Yikes. Wow. So fast fashion is just not great for water use, for chemicals, and also I think there's some ethical concerns with a lot of those companies. So, but what's the alternative?
Thrifting, which a lot of people do. Well, a lot of my friends do. Contributing to an end of the capitalistic consumers fast fashion industry is a benefit of thrifting. Like I told before, synthetic fibers require tons of energy as well as oils such as petroleum that pollutes our atmosphere, and it helps put an end to the international impoverished. So as I said, there's women and kids that are working in international countries that don't have the access to education that we do, and they're forced to work in this kind of labor, which is terrible. And if we buy from these companies, that means we're supporting it. But if we thrift, we're recycling our clothes and using clothes that people have already worn.
Yes, reuse. And that's perfect. I love to thrift. So I'm glad
Yeah,
there's a good
green is
reason.
so fun. By the way, what is greenwashing?
That I'm so glad you asked about that. Okay, because greenwashing is my biggest pet peeve. It's where companies that have like no sustainable practices will say 100% like earth friendly or totally recyclable, or like use that kind of language in their advertising to make you feel great about buying their products and feel like, oh, this is such an ethical, like I'm being such a great consumer, but it's really just a lie. There's very little regulation on who is allowed to do that kind of thing. And I think one really easy way to look for it is if you go on like a company website or something and they have one product that's like earth friendly and then everything else is just normal. It really makes you question, like, are they going through all of the steps through the production methods and all the way through the lifetime of the object to really make a sustainable difference with it. So
Mhm.
it's really a marketing strategy when something is
Wow.
greenwashed.
These capitalistic companies really try to get you. They
Yeah.
do.
And it works,
Yeah, it
especially in
does.
Earth Month. I don't know about you, but I've been seeing tons of ads for things.
Yeah.
And really, in my opinion, the best thing you can do for the earth is not buy anything that you don't need.
Yeah, exactly. Always be
Yeah,
intentional at what you buy, even for thrifting. If you don't need it, you don't have to have it.
I know. And that's hard because, in one sense, it's so cheap that you just want to get everything. But
Mhm.
if it has no place in your wardrobe, like,
Yeah.
it's not really worth it.
Are you even gonna wear it and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think about the whole debate around food and the environment? Like, have you thought about how your food impacts the environment?
Yes, I have. I've actually just I haven't watched the documentary yet, but there's this documentary on Netflix called Seaspiracy, and I've really tried to cut back on like meat and stuff like that. So I was like, maybe I could just eat fish and stuff like that. But I heard that there's a lot of bad things going on with that, such as the fishing nets that's polluting our ocean.
And there's a lot of talk about this. It's something that people push back on things like the Green New Deal. But
Mhm.
the reality is that protein that is raised with, grass-fed beef and all of those sorts of things consumes a lot more water and resources for the same amount of protein as like a plant protein does.
Mhm.
So it's a personal decision, and I don't think that there are any environmentalists out there who are really advocating like, oh, everyone needs to give up meat tomorrow. Like, nobody really thinks that. But I do think that it's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about, do I eat beef every day? Do I get a burger from Whataburger every day because I love to eat that,
Mhm.
or just because it's what's convenient, you
Exactly.
know?
I love that. Exactly. Just always realize whatever you're putting in your mouth, what was behind that, what I don't know. I always think about that when I put things in my mouth. Like, what was the labor behind this? How was this brought to my plate? And that's just really good at
Yeah.
thinking.
Being thankful for what you eat. I
Yeah.
think that's the most important part. You don't have to give up meat forever.
Mhm. Yeah.
Also, another thing is that choices that are healthier for you are often also healthier for the environment. So eating more fruits and vegetables is often something that is good for you, and those consume, less resources to produce. So those are always a good choice, especially if there's something that's in season. So if there's something that was maybe grown locally that would normally grow in your area.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay. Have you ever been at the store and you see all of the huge bunches of bananas, and then you know how people will like take one off and leave it there? A
Mhm.
lot of food waste happens at grocery stores, and they always throw out the lone bananas and the apples that maybe don't look so good. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, those are the first things to go and get thrown out. So whenever I'm at the grocery store, I'm just one person. I can't eat a whole bunch of bananas, but instead of like ripping one off, I'll find the lone bananas and
Oh.
buy those. So that's really easy to do.
I
And
like.
then another thing is that you can get milk alternatives, and you can even make them. It is so cheap
Oh.
to make oat milk. You just have to get like one tub of oats and water in a blender, and you can make your own oat milk.
We make our own oat milk one day.
It's epic. Yeah, it's so fun. So ultimately, all of this, I think, is just talking about your mindset and what you're aware of. You know, the environment isn't something that's separate from us and something that needs to be saved. It's something that we're a part of.
Hmm.
And it affects us, you know, if it goes downhill, so do we.
Hmm. Exactly. We should really respect and love the earth as much as we, advertise it. I don't. I hope that all the trendy things that are happening in April in Earth Month, people are really being intentional with it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of privilege in the environmental movement, you know, people who have enough time to think about this stuff and to care about it. But it's just another one of the things that is a justice issue. And the more that we fight for justice and equality, these things will get better too.
Hmm. So things that I could do as a choir director or as a future educator is spread awareness about this, and be a good role model to show that I'm recycling my things in an impactful way intentionally. Maybe I could like be eating things in front of my students that could like eating vegan products or even just suggest things to them, or make a choir program dedicated to the earth and climate change. There's lots of songs such as Earth Song by Frank Kelly that helps create peace and awareness about the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of fun like pop songs too, like Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell is one of my favorite that is kind of promoting, you know, just celebrating the earth and being aware of what we live on. And I think that's a really important role that music can serve in classrooms. And like you said, yeah, I think that just having a teacher who is really intentional and really brings your attention to those things can
Mhm.
maybe have a impact on kids and how they decide to live.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I think we'll pull it together a list of maybe some cool ideas and media and companies that you can check out, and we'll put it in the doobly doo. And then if you guys have any questions, I mean, Google's always there, but if you want to comment them, I'm sure we'd be happy to help.
Yeah, of course. Just try to be aware and really take in all the information that we have given you and take it into thought.
Yes. Happy Earth Month and
Happy
happy
Earth
summer.
Month! Happy summer! Oh my gosh! He says bye. Happy Earth Month. Bye up front.